Next up, Bellular video, the winners and losers of patch 11.1. Which spec should I play? Bellular is the spec I want to play, a loser spec? Ooh, what should I do?
It's that time again. 11.1 is almost here, and it brings a humongous wave of class changes. Seriously, it covers just about everything. That means some people will be thinking about re-rolling. Some of you might be a little bit worried that you might feel forced to re-roll. So today's video is our verdict on that. We have went through everything that is going on in this patch. This video brings it all together so you can understand.
To re-roll?
Now, this is mostly about fun and utility, less about raw damage output because, let's be real, tuning will happen and it's hard to predict that this early. Now, I want to start on the things that are the most hype, the most exciting, so naturally, let's talk about the winners. I'm sure we all know the feeling of death by 1,000 cuts. One of those deaths is subscriptions, and Rocket Money, today's sponsor, tackles your subscriptions head on. And if I'm anything to go by, man, those can pile up at a shocking rate. So Rocket Money is a personal finance tool that helps you lower your bills, stay on top of your subscriptions, and manage your money. And you can get started for free today at rocketmoney.com/BellularWarcraft.
That's on brand for the Goblin patch.
Rocket Money will securely and safely identify recurring charges for you, so you don't have to manually sift through all your... No, it'll do that, make it easy. You can then just cancel them in a few taps. They've put the work in to make that smooth and easy. So if it's a chore that you've been putting off for a long time, Rocket Money can get that solved for you in no time at all. They also do amazing things like help you with bill negotiations. You can simply upload your bill and they'll be able to help, right?
You pay a sub to have less sub? Oh, is it also a sub?
My internet went to its off-contract price recently. I was able to negotiate that bill down in price by half, but also I doubled the speed of my internet. That's what...
Sometimes it's not that easy to cancel a subscription. I don't know if you've ever tried to cancel a news service subscription. Like, I think for me it was, I was trying to cancel a Wall Street Journal or something, and they made it so hard. I had to call them. Like, you couldn't just cancel online. They want you to call them and explain why you need to cancel it. And it's horrible. Have you ever run into a situation like that? I wonder if Rocket Money will handle that for you.
You can get when you negotiate your bills, and Rocket Money can help you with that. And just on the subscription front, they've cancelled over $500 million of subscriptions, and overall, they've...
Yeah, do you give Rocket Money access to all your accounts everywhere?
Help save their customers up to $740 a year when using all the app's premium features. Now, Rocket Money has got other great tools to help you budget, so if you would like to spend less and save more, you can join the over 5 million Rocket Money members today using rocketmoney.com/BellularNews or just clicking the link down below. You can start off for free and you can unlock more features with premium.
I had to Google how to cancel Audible.
/BellularWarcraft.
Oh my god, canceling Audible is a whole thing because I use Audible, so I don't care, but it's hard to cancel Audible because they are like, oh, but if you cancel, you'll lose you have like 10 credits and you'll lose all your credits if you cancel right now. They like threaten you. Anyways, Hunter, my main.
Hunter's pretty much come out of this patch as happy as can be. That's because Marksmanship has got a full rework that is an absolute joy to play, and both Beast Mastery and Survival have had their most boring hero talent trees massively upgraded.
Yay!
Now, we've done a full video on the Marksmanship Hunter rework.
I watched that
video. It is
video.
Fantastic. The rework, that is. It's a pretty
video.
Good video, but here's the short version of why it's a winner. It now plays way more smoothly. It's easier to understand. It uses fewer buttons, but like in a way that feels intuitive, not dumbed down. And the focus management gameplay is massively improved, especially in AoE. And the whole lone wolf debacle has finally been solved because, pet or no, you will get an eagle companion, and the eagle companion handles all of your utility, even Bloodlust, which is big for playability. Then for the other two, we've got the pack leader revamp, which honestly is kind of huge. It's more huge for fantasy than gameplay, but honestly I still count that as a major win because it was totally sauceless. Now you can summon in classic horde beasts like an actual pack. That means a rampaging bear, a charging boar, and a scouting wyvern. It's kind of Rexar vibes, which I really like. Its gameplay is much improved, and the fantasy is honestly transformational. As for gameplay stuff for the core specs, well, both Beast Mastery and survival have had minor fixes to talent setups, mostly in the AoE side of things, which overall means if you're an existing hunter, basically congratulations. You've got a humongous upgrade with marksmanship, and at the very least, pack leader is actually something you can try and play and will be pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Happy to say demon hunters are also a winner. That's
exactly what I wanted to hear. We won. We get to keep our pets if you want them, and pack leader better, and it's gonna be fun. I cannot wait to try marksman after the servers go up. I'm feeling good about. Everyone says it's fun. I haven't tested on the PTR yet.
Is almost a reroll tier level of upgrade to the spec. It's not quite worth rerolling to, but if you're a victim of Havoc just getting way too complicated over time and losing a bit of its identity, you're actually getting compensation here. The complicated buff stacking with Immolation Aura and Fel Rush is gone, which will be huge for your day-to-day second-to-second gameplay. So now that stuff is on Vengeful Retreat and Fellblade, which is actually kind of big because of how Blizzard have actually done the specifics there, where you can actually animation cancel if you Fellblade immediately after the Vengeful Retreat, which just feels so much better for your movement.
Cool.
Now the way it works, though, is that your buff windows line up nicely every 20 seconds, and they're less
Does that mean you're forced to do the backflip
dangerous to trigger, because you're not going to zoom off into Narnia and make a big mistake. That's one of those things that's a small change, but to your actual second-to-second gameplay, aggravation, and fun factor, it's huge. And in terms of performance, unless you were somebody who was mastering Demon Hunter as it was, this is probably going to be an increase in your damage output. There is still a high skill ceiling, it's just quite a bit less frustrating than it was before. Which basically means that for melee DPS players, this is getting very close to reroll territory, but you are still brutally weak on utility, which could be a little bit of an issue. So if you want to know more about how this was literally a dying spec per the numbers, what this overall does, and the other changes, you can check out our dedicated video on it.
Dead spec.
Now, on the side of the tanks, with Vengeance...
I didn't know about all that. Do we have any Demon Hunters in the chat that were upset with the way that it was?
Demon Hunter, there is very little to report. Demon Spikes lasts longer, so that'll smooth out your tanking damage, but yeah, that's really it.
Wow, that's interesting. He named that chapter Demon Hunter is playable, but it sounds a lot better than playable. Oh god, Druid. Before he even gets into this section, let me just say, I played so much Druid and Dragonflight, and I loved it, but I just haven't been vibing with it in the War Within. I found it to be really clunky to try to work around the balanced Druid cooldowns, and I felt like in Resto Druid, with the Mythic Plus scenario especially, didn't have enough like emergency tools that I could use to deal with unexpected situations like I do on every other healer that I play. So has Druid gotten love? Has Druid gotten love?
Our next winner spent a lot of time being a loser. It's the Druids. And this time it really is Druid, not anyone's spec. And that's because the Druid class tree was a total nightmare. Thankfully, was is the word, not is, because now it's a whole bunch better. Okay. With 11.1's changes, the pathing is far more natural, and that means that great talents like Skull Bash, Feline Swiftness, Fluid Form, and even well-honed Instinct are actually easier to get to. That'll feel great for building, and you've got some new freed up points that can go into shiny new tools, like a heal-sharing one called Symbiotic Relationship. Now, of the specs, Resto does benefit the most here, because instead of awkwardly cat-weaving and casting for damage, you can now specialize into one or the other. It's quite a bit better. And to make that even better, Moonkin form is actually now back in the class tree. It's not game-changing, but it is a solid improvement if that's the way you want to go for Resto. As for Resto itself...
Wait, you can use Moonkin form? You can spec into using Moonkin form as a Resto Druid? And you can choose to be a caster instead of cat weaving as Resto?
It does have a few spec-specific upgrades. Tranquility's heals per second has almost doubled. Now, it's overall like about the same healing, it's just that the cast time is down to 5 seconds, so that'll be pretty damn nice when you need to hit that big oh shit button. And the next time your party's health bars go into squeaky bum time territory, you'll actually find something...
He said it again. I think he said it this time on purpose because he knew last time it totally derailed the video and we laughed about it and we laughed and laughed. I'm sure He got quite a stir out of the audience. The last time he threw in a squeaky bum time, and he's just gonna, I bet he's gonna put in as many videos as he can now.
Quite nice in that your nature swiftness regrowths actually now hit a whole bunch harder. Well, heal a whole bunch harder, which is nice. Most importantly, then, mastery is easier to use here. They've curved the scaling so that the first few hots give you most of the bonus.
Yeah.
And Guardian also gets a few welcome touch-ups like Ray.
First few hots give a big bonus. It's better for squeaky bum time. I'm gonna be saying it. It's horrible. Bellular. Stop it.
Is actually replacing Maul, some much-needed passive magic resistance, and a buff to frenzied regen potency.
Guardian,
many people,
I might
me
try.
included, would probably like a rework to Guardian, but hey, that is a win, and overall for the Druids, well, it's a win. If you are an already happy Druid, you're going to be a lot happier, but it's not really a game changer, and it's not reroll territory.
Shaman,
There's
yeah,
good news
my
for the
other
Shamans.
mate.
You guys are the reigning king of patch note lines. Like, seriously, you guys get all of the word count. That's because there's a lot of changes. There are big class-wide ones, which are the removal of Ancestral Guidance, because Blizzard wants to make off-healing a choice instead of a passive thing, and a rework to Primordial Wave. And to get to the specifics, it's enhancement where we see some excellent news. The TLDR from Blizzard is that Maelstrom Weapon makes up way too much of your damage, so Blizzard are basically swapping around the numbers to make your melee stuff hit harder. But it's actually a bit more than that. Primordial Wave is now a big damage dealer that slaps all of your flame-shocked targets, and it's got a new Storm AoE follow-up. Then Sundering's reset chance has been changed to depend on target count, and Voltaic Blaze now triggers more reliably. All that should feel a good bit better. And Blizzard also took the chance to solve Ascendance Fishing. You can now just fire off spells at 5 or more stacks instead of wanting to optimize, which is way better. And all of these fairly major changes, plus how the changes to Storm Strike and Lava Lash interact with talents, just make enhancement substantially smoother to play, which is a good thing. One example of that is Lava Lash spreading all 5 flames.
I like this Primordial Storm he talked about. It's going to slap everything that has a lava flame shock on it.
And another one is Totemic basically being reworked. So the Totem got nerfed hard, but all the other talents basically got hooked into more places, which basically means that if you want to go for a more proper lava build, that's actually a good bit more likely. There's then another huge set of changes that basically won't matter if you're a heavy weak auras user, but if you're not, well, it's going to matter a lot. That's because Blizzard have updated all of the UI. So they're removing glows from some spells, they're adding glows to other spells, and they're cleaning up how Maelstrom Weapon displays. And all of this is much needed stuff because the glow soup was a little bit of a nightmare. It wasn't clear.
Okay, so this shows live, and this shows PTR of what's glowing and what's not.
Now for every single player, enhancement will just be more clear to play, and it will be smoother to play, which overall means that the 11.1 enhancement changes are a pretty damn substantial upgrade.
Yeah, it could be pretty confusing
for both the casual and the advanced experience, except for losing guidance, which is a fairly major blow to your Mythic Plus strength. The next thing then is Restoration Shaman. So Primordial Wave is gone, and you've got a big old cleanup pass. And one of the examples there is kind of funny. So your Mana Tide totem is actually now built into your Healing Tide totem. Now in a way that's good, right? Because it saves you a keybind. Though it is a little odd because those two things do have very different functions. Now it's just bundled in.
Why would they put it on the same totem? Healing Tide totem now additionally grants 80% increased mana regeneration. No. Put it back.
To 1. But I think it could end up edging out as a bit of a positive. Now, what is more clearly positive is Resto getting an AoE component to Healing Wave with the Riptides and a massive change to
AoE component to Healing Wave. 10% of Healing Wave's healing is duplicated onto each of your targets with Riptide. Oh, I mean, that makes sense.
Earth Shield and Water Shield. This will be great. They can now be permanent, which means no more charges, no more upkeep, just, they're there. They're permanent, which is a big...
I don't know, I kind of liked the upkeep on Earth Shield.
Quality of life upgrade. Elemental...
But I'm probably the only Shaman who feels that way.
Stays as is, which overall does mean that Shamans are a winner.
Paladin, of course,
Paladin
is a
another winner, but like the Shaman, they have
obviously.
lost some passive off healing. That's a part of a broader design direction for Blizzard. In this case, though, it is via nerfs, not removals. To talk about Ret, then. Ret is almost perfect as it is. The only changes that it sees are a Divine Hammer rework, where Hammer is actually now an AoE that consumes holy power to stay active, which
what? Divine Hammer, spin around you, striking enemies nearby for holy damage every 2 seconds for 8 seconds. While active, each holy power spent increases the duration of Divine Hammer. Wow! That sounds really sick. Ret just keeps getting better. It's already perfect, but they just keep making it cooler and better all the time.
To be honest, I think's pretty damn great. Spamming Hammer and just having hammers whirling around you just felt like sort of lame RSI to me. It was never fun, so that's kind of neat. Beyond that, then, there are some healing buffs and nerfs. Moving over to Prot. Prot is almost perfect. It sees only a minor change to a Templar talent and some healing, which does mean that Holy Paladin is where we're getting the action today. And that's quite a lot. So Holy gets Unbound Freedom, which should be pretty nice for your movement.
Holy is not a healer that I have tried, so I don't know anything about Holy. Hi, Grim Smokes at 420. How are you doing?
And more importantly, large buffs to the base values of their direct healing spells, which actually explains what could be scary, because if you look at this, you see what appears to be a humongous list of nerfs. But it's not that. Basically, Blizzard are making it so the talents that change the power of spells are toned down, but the base spells themselves are greatly buffed, which essentially means that you're going to be less dependent on your talent. So a spell won't be completely useless without, say, 1 or 2 talents specifically being chosen. For some examples, Holy Shock gets a 40% healing and 100% damage buff. Holy Light gets a 90% healing buff. So that's pretty damn big stuff. And also, they're tweaking mana. Here's a really cool one. You will get a 50% mana refund if you use Holy Shock on an enemy, which I just think for your decision making, you want to do some damage, right, when you're healing. That feels way better. And all of these are much needed changes to a spec that, to be honest, has been floundering for a while, which means these are going to feel better, right? Holy Paladin will feel better. It will be more of an option that you can take.
Seems good.
As far as melee healers go, I mean, it's really going to struggle comparing to how cool our next class is.
Monk.
Now, that's not because Mistweaver is getting a revamp or anything, it's just Mistweaver is really good, and it's only a small winner in this patch, but it's carrying lots of wins from the last few patches. So if you've not caught up with Mistweaver in, say, an expansion or two, it's pretty damn huge. Okay, really? So you've got a new...
So I'm leveling a monk for the first time right now. I've never played monk, and so I would say monk is the one class that I know the least about of all the classes in World of Warcraft.
Option for big single target Shenlun's gift healing, which is pretty sick.
Do you have to punch the enemy while you're healing? Like, is it fist weaving?
And an update to Chi-Ji to be a much stronger cooldown while moving both it and Yulon to a more reliable 2-minute cooldown. You've got that, plus some simplified damage, less tank buffs, more baseline damage, and it just means that they're coming into patch 11.1 as, honestly, an almost must-play for healers. Okay. Look, Monk is sick, and it's continuing to be so, which is nice. And what a lot of this is a simplification pass, a consolidation pass, that continues to actually be pretty positive for the game. Next then, we've got Windwalker, where they're getting the Wind Kick ability from Plunderstorm. Yeah, so you'll get that as an ability that replaces Flying Serpent Kick, of course, if you talent into it, and you've got similar changes to Mistweaver.
Slicing winds. How are you gonna slice with your foot? If you have a talon on your toenail, I guess.
Serpent Kick, of course, if you talent into it, and you've got similar changes to Mistweaver.
Slice them with your toenails.
Where you get some more power pushed to your baseline AoE, a flat cooldown reduction from Zhuan, and then for the Brewmasters, yeah, you guys do kind of get to rot for a little bit longer. There's no meaningful changes, which is a shame. Hopefully that means there's something waiting in the wings for our next patch, because while Monk overall is awesome, Brewmaster is relatively looking kind of dire. But that being said, there is good news for tanks as a whole.
Okay.
Now, I will caution you that this is anecdotal, but we have been hearing that Mythic Plus on the recent builds of the PTR has been mechanically a lot more forgiving, and especially for tanks, right? We know the Blizzard had done things like spacing out abilities more, nerfing tank busters, and that actually does seem to be paying off. We're almost at the end of the winners, but there's a few more to go, and Mage is a tricky one. So Frost falls under minor upgrade, Fire lands in the sort of intended upgrade but will feel worse area, which is not really great. And Arcane is totally lost in the sauce. So here's what I mean. Frost sees the death of proc munching, which is great. So now Fingers of Frost Ice Lances won't consume Winter's chill stacks, which means that you can use every single opportunity for damage. Yeah, munching your buffs never felt great, so that's good. And as another nice bonus, your blizzards will now hit a whole lot harder, and they're actually a whole lot bigger.
Blizzard damage increased by 100% in a 12-yard radius. What?
As well. Fire then is a tough nut to crack for this video. So throwing out your instant pyros all day is fun, but it's kind of hard to balance that. So a downgrade going into 11.1 is this. You are getting fewer fire blasts and phoenix flames to use across the board, right? Now, to compensate for that, you're getting baseline damage buffs. So the good part here is on Blizzard's end, right? It allows them to put more oomph into each pyro for meaningful burst damage, because there's less of them, but they'll hit harder. But that does mean that you will be hard casting Fireball more often. And of course, in a world where lots of instants just feels amazing for your movement, that may not feel as great straight up. Now, Blizzard have also increased the stack and crit to smooth this out, but it is still a little bit slower to play. And then it's time for Arcane, because Arcane is, of course, Arcane and lost in the sauce. Blizzard have attempted to fix Arcane Barrage.
Mostly I play Frost, but I have played a lot of Arcane
usage being complicated. Again, they've done this many times. But in doing that, they basically made everybody extremely mad, and that forced Blizzard to revert what they were planning to do. But then, while they were at it, they actually did manage to fix it. It's a whole journey, and the short version is that Aether Vision made knowing when to press Barrage kind of awkward. So Blizzard tried to fix that by removing Barrage modifiers from Nether Precision. But then everybody said that that was way worse.
I'm lost
so Blizzard then reverted the change and just removed Aether Vision instead. So there's no Aether Vision. And in Aether Vision's place, you now get a simpler buff version of last season's tier bonus added to your talents. So you've got that and a handful of smaller fixes like a Sun Fury buff and some more AoE power that should lessen the blow of Blizzard choosing not to...
hearing about a spec you don't play is like hearing another language.
Give back the pretty
Holy
amazing
shit.
feeling.
I have no idea what he's talking about.
11.0 version. Which overall means this.
Maybe I should
Mages they're a winner on a
that I play.
Technicality, but Fire might feel worse. But don't lose sight.
Because it's like a whole other...
Like,
I don't know the names of all these talents.
Which is that Mage is an amazing class. If you like the idea of doing Mage bullshit, Mage absolutely delivers that in spades. Okay, Warlocks, you're up next, and you don't get much, but you do get wins. Affliction Soul Rot loses the Drain Life component, and it now just does big AoE damage while giving you a heal, so...
How is Warlock right now? Do we have Warlocks in the chat? Was hoping for Brewmaster changes. What I hear about Brewmaster is that it's very difficult for a new player, and that it's very complicated and complex.
Similar effect, but you're getting there in a more simple way. So that's that. Then Demonology gets a Doom and Doom Eternal rework. Now Doom's countdown is spread by Hand of Gul'dan, and it has a chance to proc a free Demon Bolt when it finishes. And thankfully, you now get your free Dreadstalkers twice as often now, which should certainly feel quite good. Moving to Destro then, you get passive versions of Demon Fire and Dimensional Rift, and Blizzard's reasoning here is that those basically could crowd out the core Chaos Bolt game loop of playing the spec. So
Demon Fire Infusion. Have they done anything with Wither since War Within came out? Because when War Within came out, I played around with the Hellcaller hero spec, which I really like the concept of, but I didn't like dealing with Wither in the state that it was at the start of the expansion. I don't know if much has been changed with it, but I found it to be a little bit tedious, and I feel like it didn't work with the Destro fantasy as much as, like, it didn't feel like chaos magic. It felt like an affliction spell, which I didn't like.
You get those options. And then finally, Havoc now lasts a little bit longer, while Rain of Fire is getting a targeted version, which altogether is nothing huge, and Warlock certainly would benefit from more, but this is a winners and losers video, and these things are wins.
Okay.
Priest is a winner, but with an asterisk. And I say that because I don't know if I would call these reworks, but what has happened is both of the Priest healing specs have got massive overdue updates. And they both have got the same idea, right? Kill cooldown bloat, buff everything else, and clean up button bloat. I'll start off with Discipline. So Discipline loses Rapture. Yeah, loses Rapture, which I suppose would have been good for old me because I always forgot to press that bloody button.
I don't play Priest.
Anyway, so you lose Rapture, but you get everything else buffed to make up for that. Evangelism especially has had a huge upfront heal added, but your overall base healing with Smite and Pain damage, of course converting into healing via Atonement, well, that stuff will be bigger.
Messed around in my Goblin Warlock. Oh my god. Sorry, it looks like I have the game running. There is a rare in the zone that is really loud. I don't know if you can hear that. It probably could. Yeah. Hell looks to be the go-to build going forward. How does Wither work today, though? That's around Goblin Warlock. The Demonology spec, but Destro isn't as fun because Voidwalker tank isn't as effective as the Felguard. Well, who do you like? You'll have Bran as your tank, right? And Delves pretty soon.
The durations will be higher, which is great. The reason why I forgot to press Rapture is because I always thought the coolest part of the spec was Atonement, so a little bit more into Atonement is certainly good in my book. Now, an odd part of this is that Purge the Wicked has been replaced. It was pretty awesome, and it's a hell of a name for a spell. What's odd here is you still get the effect of Purge the Wicked, but the spell is still just called Shadow Word Pain, which is a bit odd. That's the big stuff then. There's a stack of smaller things that are just meant to tidy up the flow. Those are things like cooldown reduction on Shadow Fiend being fixed, and, this is big actually, the ability to move during Ultimate Penance. Kind of huge. Now, Discipline still does have some issues. I mean, not having Rapture may end up feeling a little bit crippling because
I might skip the Priest section because I don't play Priest at all, and there's really nothing I can add here. So I'm going to give y'all the link to this video if, so like you can of course watch that section if you play Priest, but since I don't, and I really don't have plans to, I really just, like, it's all nonsense to me and I don't understand what he's talking about.
Stop that.
So I'm going to skip ahead. I'll give you the link, though, for the video.
Bad news. You're a loser.
Evoker.
Evokers are in a funny place because you do have some wins, but one of your specs is a massive loser. So here's the deal. The biggest upgrade...
So I like Prez a lot, and I love Destruction.
...you get is Rescue now breaking roots, as if Rescue wasn't already strong enough. Devastation gets quality of...
Clears movement effects.
...life with Eternity Surge.
It was already ridiculous for the... council fight in there
radius
of our
boost
palace.
And firestorm damage being cut. It only does 50% more damage and in only 6 seconds, but if that is enough is kind of another question entirely. You also lose your Essence Burst Casino talent, which will slow down gameplay a bit, but you get a boost to Disintegrate in its place. Then Preservation's Dream Breath is now guaranteed to heal the caster, and both of the specs get a slightly revamped Flame Shaper tree that focuses on more breath spells instead of extending breath spells.
Flame Shapers can now cast Fire Breath and Dream Breath more often and have them deal more damage healing in a compressed window of time. That sounds good.
And now for
more effective in a dungeon
big thing. Augmentation Evoker has been it's been taken away to live on the big farm in the sky in at least one way. Their main stat buffs no longer hit tanks and no longer hit.
What? Holy shit. Okay, well, I see. That's
healers. And that does remove
that's
the
huge.
thing that made them special, right? In that they were a support for everybody. Because now all that they do is buff DPS to do more DPS.
Right.
So they're basically just another DPS, right? Now they're still going to offer plenty of damage and they do have incredible utility. But what this does mean is they likely won't feel required to push Mythic Plus keys anymore.
Isn't that good?
And that does mean that if you played one and you benefited from that dynamic, this is a massive bloody loss. Overall for the game, though, this probably is more healthy.
Better. It's probably more healthy. Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
There's one thing warriors shouldn't be: complicated. It's about being dumb and hitting things hard. But sadly, you guys are complicated right now, at least in where you fall in this video. Everything that Blizzard says in the patch notes makes sense, but it doesn't really look like it's going to make warriors happy. Here's the deal. You should all have a tiny bit more survivability because of a buff to reinforced plates, which is a nice start. Then arms, like a lot of specs, is having its damage moved out of the talents and into baseline abilities, with Mortal Strike and Cleave being buffed. That's nothing that will help it compete with Fury, though, which is currently played 5 to 6 times more than Arms right now.
It's been like that forever. Like, for as long as I can remember, Arms has just not been able to compete with Fury. And I love Arms. I always thought Arms was really fun because it's like you can build up to a big damage number. It's more slow and deliberate, but when you're ready for it, you can hit really hard and it feels amazing. I always preferred that to Fury. I always thought that was more fun than just like the crazy playstyle of Fury. I thought Arms was more fun, but I usually end up playing Fury instead, which is fun in its own way. But yeah, it's crazy how many more people pushed into Fury.
Fury, meanwhile, has got some small redesigns to wreck.
Now, with Arms cannot be Mountain Thane either, right? It's not available to Arms, I'm pretty sure.
Abandon and Titan's Torment. Recklessness upgrades your abilities while active instead of once, and then Avatar now speeds up your rotation a whole ton.
Ooh.
And those do sound like nice little tweaks, but it does not go really far enough or do anything to solve how out of control the talent pathing has gotten, nor the general lack of utility that warriors have got, which basically just means if you want to be a DPS warrior, you can do that. But you could also play Retribution Paladin. Ret Paladin is amazing.
You can't be a Night Elf Paladin, though.
Okay, prot then. Blizzard identified the prot warriors are...
How can anything compete with Ret Paladin right now? Ret Paladin, it's perfect. Like,
swimming in rage to the point where it's hard to make meaningful decisions on what button to press, so you just end up spamming and spamming and spamming. Blizzard's answer has been to nerf your rage gen.
So they said prot warrior currently constantly flooded with rage, which undermines rotational defensive decision making and encourages constant dumping of rage and to ignore pain to maximize effectiveness. But you have to do that to ignore pain, so you can ignore pain. We're taking a pass at reducing protection's overall rage generation to make decisions on when and how to spend it more meaningful. I don't know about that. About reducing protection warrior's ability to tank effectively. We'll see how that works out.
Generation.
You're basically asking warriors to think more.
Shield slam reset chances are down, rage is down from most sources, and that does mean a lot less pressing ignore pain. Now, you do get some passive buffs to try and make up for this.
Don't know. I don't like that.
But I think for most people, this is a loss.
So
for most people, it will feel a bit worse.
It's an L, yeah.
And overall, I'm thinking a small-scale rework could probably solve this issue in the future, right? Hopefully that can happen, or maybe even allow for a choice between like a high and a low APM build. But for now, you are just kind of stuck with a nerf-feeling prod.
So who's the best tank to play for 11.1, y'all?
Patch 11.1.
Arms is the best. Big sword. One big sword. You got it. You understand what I mean. Yeah, I like one big sword that make one big button, big damage number. It all builds up to that one huge swing coming down so hard.
Death Knights, sad news. You are a loser, but the good news is...
Yes, you understand. The fantasy of arms, and I haven't seen it in a long time.
It's only by a little bit. So, aside from some damage numbers being shuffled around the place, Frost...
Chat says Prot Pally and Demon Hunter are the tanks.
And Unholy are going to be a bit more squishy coming into
I don't like what I've heard about Prot. Let me shut up for a second and go back, because I'm talking over him. Death Knight.
Death Knights, sad news, you are a loser, but the good news is it's only by a little bit. So, aside from some damage numbers being shuffled around the place, Frost and Unholy are going to be a bit more squishy coming into patch 11.1. You're losing some stamina and some passive magic resistance, and that does bring your baseline defense just a bit closer to normal, so you're a little bit less of an unstoppable sort of force of death.
The Blizzard said that Unholy and Frost were like immortal. And just way too, what's the word? Survivable?
But you're still Death Knights, which is pretty rad. You've still got all of your defensive tools. It's just, you'll now kind of have to use them properly.
Okay. That's not an L. That's normal.
And now for the truly shocking bit of the video. You've probably clocked on that we're actually quite close to the finish, but I've got an entire class to talk about. The Rogue! And there you go. That's the rogue changes. Yes, rogues are losers. But you know what? You guys are used to it, right? You didn't expect much, did you? Hopefully we'll get changes next patch. If you're not happy, it might be time to re-roll, because it does look that you're stuck with what you've got for the next while. So there you have it. Winners and losers. And two of the big winners in today's video were the...
Oh my god, the chapter. The chapter is the Rogue LMAO. I wanted to play Rogue. In my interview with the devs before War Within, they asked me what class I was most excited to play, and I said Rogue. Trickster Rogue. That's the one that seems coolest to me. But that's one that I haven't really been able to play, because it's just not it. I tried it, but it's just not doing it.
Demon Hunter and the Hunter. Both forms of hunters. If you like the details on how those feel, how those play, you can check out this video next.
Way to go, Bellular. This is a fantastic video. Thank you for summarizing the patch notes for me, a person that really doesn't want to read every percent increase and percent decrease and then put it all together into theory about what's going on. God bless you, Bellular. I appreciate you doing this and summarizing it. That was very helpful and straightforward and clear. I very liked that very much. Let me give you the link to this video so you can go over there and drop Bellular a sub and a like. You absolutely should.